Welcome aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Mr. Kerr and I are back at our respective homes after spending some time together last week at Evermore, Disney World, and all the other fun places in between. Mr. Kerr, how the heck are you?
Oh man, I've been back at work since 7 a.m. this morning. Eastern Standard Time is now 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And let me tell you, it is just lovely to be back at work.
Ready for a break already.
Holy moly guacamole. I had to play some serious pickleball tonight to unleash the fury on that sphere of death to my opponents on the other side of the net. Because I got to go right back to the airport tomorrow morning, and that's also not going to be fun.
Yes, well, as we're recording, I have not packed yet, but I am supposed to leave tonight to fly to Newark for the daytime London flight tomorrow. So,
to Europe. That's right.
Little Lisbon stuff going on. But let's see what we got covered this week. We're going to talk a little bit about our stay at the Evermore, which was a pretty exciting complex. We're going to try to figure out if your workday is more or less frustrating than the new Disney Lightning Lane system. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Virgin Atlantic Awards that you and I both landed on with a few thousand of our friends. And maybe a little bit of a Frontier Tales update with some surprising news from Mr. Kerr. So all that to cover today. If you want to get a hold of us, you can text us or leave us a voicemail at 571-293-6659. Email Ed at pizzainmotion.com. He is at Kerr Points on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion, at Miles to Go on TikTok and Instagram. Miles to Go podcast, my bad. All right, so let's start with Evermore, man. I didn't know what to expect going into it. Not sure where your head was because I hadn't even been to the Conrad yet. But this was a hosted stay. We were not the hostees per se. That was our buddy Summer. But we had an 11-bedroom house on the Evermore complex, which is located sort of behind Disney World. It's the old second golf course at Hyatt Regency Grand Cypress. Probably 10 minutes to get to the parks if you go through the back roads. And just a massive complex. There's a hotel. There's a bunch of what they call flats, which are essentially like, 4-bedroom apartments. And then there are houses, everything from 5 bedrooms up to the 11-bedroom monstrosity that you and I stayed in. Had you been to the Evermore complex yet? Have you been to the Conrad before?
No. I've just been following across various social media posts from a lot of folks who had stayed at the Conrad, and then it is a very YouTube-friendly property. A lot of folks making some good YouTube videos and reels because of all the scenery there. Really impressive. Just opened up earlier this year, right? And not very long. I'd actually heard about this 3 or 4 years ago in a small world. Buddy from high school that I graduated with is the president of a construction company, and they did all of the interiors of the homes in Evermore. So he knew I was a Disney guy. Reached out several years ago and was like, "Have you heard about this massive new project next to Disney?" And I had not, and looked it up, and wow, I sent him a note and said, "You guys probably did pretty good building out this this complex." He's like, "Yeah, it was a good project for us." I was like, "Yeah," but very cool. Basically, all of it centered around a blue lagoon, an 8-acre blue lagoon. That's actually a really cool setup to have. So you have the Conrad on one side, you've got the flats facing it, and on the far end of the lagoon, you kind of have a mixed-use recreation area that has really cool 4-person water slide you can race on that I went down at least 20 times, and my kids went down probably 50. A rope swing and platform jumps into the lagoon, which is something cool you don't see because you just don't expect that from an insurance perspective anymore, because somebody could really get hurt on those, and I lost some skin on my fingers as we all jumped on the rope swing. And they have a food court there and, lounge area, cornhole, ice cream truck, just some pretty cool vibes and some really affordably priced wine, right, Pizza?
Well, the rentals, paddle boards, kayaks, all that stuff, those are included. The wine is not, and I would suggest buying some before you get there. Yeah. But it was a surprise to me that all of the rental equipment was included. So you can really, like when we think about resort stays, which, maybe you're not going to Disney World for a resort stay, but I could see going to Evermore, even if you didn't really if you really plan on going to the parks.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And because all that stuff is included, to your point, like the big massive slide, and I've got some B-roll footage that we'll weave into the episode here, but the rope swings, the kayaks, the paddle boards. Like I saw a 5-person paddle board going across the lagoon at one point. There's a couple of bars in the sand along the water, plenty of chairs, plenty of umbrellas, no charge for the umbrellas, plenty of chairs. I never saw it full, even though the complex seemed to, have a bunch of people there. There were some cabanas, which I would imagine there's probably a charge for those, but there's so much space. I guess I could envision a world where it would be full, but boy, I mean, there's just so much space there that you never felt crowded. And I think that was one of the reasons why I really liked being around there.
Yeah, I would go as far to say like the neighborhood with all the resort homes certainly didn't feel crowded at all. And the way they've got it designed, you actually have plenty of privacy. Every little villa's got its own little pool that's inside of a little gated complex that you have to have a code to get into your house. So, if you want privacy, you can go for sure and still have a great time there. House was, 3 stories, the slide from the third story to the second story. The third story is a kid's floor they had 3 Pac-Man machines and a table game and bunk bedrooms. Each and every bedroom had their own bathroom. Second floor, communal living space, ping pong table, 4 bedrooms off of that. And then a massive open living room, family room, outdoor table. Just a really, really impressive place. And your car's going, how much does this cost? And I think on last week's podcast in the AMA, Summer Hole, aka Mommy Points, made a good point that per bedroom, it's about the same cost as a Disney moderate, even I would say value resort on some days, depending on when you're going.
Yeah.
About $250 per night per bedroom. So, you're paying $250 a night at Disney for a bedroom. And if you want to get a bunch of families together or a couple families and do a 4 or 5 bedroom, you could do that and split it out amongst. And, I would say, not like cheaper, but certainly not a bad value if you're looking for that entire experience with everything included. So I was really impressed with the resort as a whole.
Yeah, I think, a couple things to comment on there. One, we did confirm that the slide holds adults, roughly your size and mine.
Yeah.
Got a little video of me going down the slide. I don't know if we'll be able to get the noises in, but the slide definitely takes a second turn that maybe I wasn't expecting. And some old man noises escaped from me as I shot down the slide. Tons of space in the house. To your point, if you can fill all the bedrooms to get the numbers right, there's a full living room downstairs. Then there was another living room on the second floor. And then up on the third floor where the kids' bunk rooms were, they each had their own like little locker to store their stuff. The bunk beds sort of tiered over each other. And then there were 4 video games, 3 Pac-Man machines and like a multi-game machine. So ping pong table on the second floor. I mean, just tons and tons of stuff. Pool outside, outdoor dining table for, I don't know, probably 15, a hammock, a swing, a cornhole, you name it. So plenty of stuff to do in the house. I think the other thing too, like you talked about, if you're trying to take a longer trip down to Orlando, you could definitely do enough stuff on property a day or two and not have to pay for park tickets. So that might be a reasonable way to conserve some costs, if you will, if you don't want to go to the parks every day. So the whole package was really impressive, and I didn't really know what to expect going into it. And I walked away more impressed than I was expecting to. I mean, anytime somebody says 11 bedroom house, like you have a feeling it's going to be pretty awesome. And I think it exceeded even those expectations of just, wow, like they really had it all put together. Even like you said, the multi-purpose space, they've got 3 or 4 like counter service restaurants. There's groceries there, though I'd probably recommend going off site to get your groceries or get the vodka, because Kurt did well on the vodka.
Oh yeah.
But just tons and tons of space. And I think, when I think about, like the Art of Animation, the Big Blue Pool, which is one of the biggest pools at Disney World, it never really feels empty because there's always, 1,000 kids in it. And, like when you guys were going down the slide, there were a lot of people around, but it didn't feel crowded because 4 of you could go down the slide at one time without anybody being close to each other.
I thought that was actually the smart logistics part, rather than have the typical bottleneck at a resort water slide where it's 1 kid at a time. You can race 4 people at a time, and there was never a line, even when it was quote unquote crowded. And then actually the second night when you guys were still all at the parks and the Curse tapped out of Hollywood Studios early, me and Thomas went over there and there was literally nobody over there. And we were just having the time of our lives, bouncing around from platform to rope swing to water slide. And then they have a second pool complex, which it's kind of, I don't even know if you saw it, man. Behind the 4-person water slide, if you crossed the street, was another super chill like garden pool.
Oh,
that had 2 hot tubs, and there was absolutely nobody over there. So if you're looking for like the adults only vibe, I don't think it was adults only, but there was certainly, all the kids were over by the water slide and rope swing and all that stuff. There's definitely plenty of pockets to go and find some privacy and chill stuff, which way better if that's kind of your vibe than like hanging by a Disney pool or even any of the main resort pools in Orlando. Like it's always just going to be packed with a million people. And again, just so much space has different vibes here.
Yeah, and if you want to do it with points, then you're talking about the Conrad, which is a Hilton upscale brand. We said anywhere from like 80 to 100,000 points a night. And there's a couple of really good restaurants there. I didn't get the chance to try either, which is disappointing because Summer talked about how great the poke bowls were at, I think it was called Papayas. And then there's a Mexican joint on the roof of Conrad that she also said she really loved. But so there's ways to do this with cash or maybe flexible currencies like Capital and Venture miles. And you can go straight points if you're a Hilton person and stay at the Conrad and get access to all these same amenities. So, definitely something that's on my radar for the future, depending on what type of Central Florida trip I'm planning, whether it, like when the new Epic Universe opens up or what have you, if we're going to be down there for longer. That's a great transition to Disney's new Lightning Lane system. And I'm going to give the TLDR right at the beginning. If anybody thinks that Disney does stuff for Richard and I because of the positive vibes that we give off, like Disney influencers, I think our review of the new Lightning Lane system will probably convince you we're not on that list.
I'm not. This is no vibrato, no like trying to really maybe oversell something. Ed got the maddest that I've seen him in 4 or 5 years when we were trying to figure out how this Lightning Lane thing was going to work, picking our Lightning Lanes 3 days before the property when the window opens if you're staying off-site. Like, dude, you got the most frustrated and upset I've seen you in a very long time because this is just such a downgrade to what it used to be. And that was a downgrade to what it used to be before COVID. So
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, at a high level, I get that they want to encourage on-site stays. I totally understand it. Obviously they can't fit everybody in their own hotels that can fit in the parks. It's just,
despite them trying by building even more hotels now.
Right. It's just not possible. But, and to be clear, like I understand the philosophy of there's a benefit to staying on site and early access to the parks or late access. But to your point, at a time where, we were like, look, there was a race week. It was also part of our time. There was Jersey week, which is a pretty popular time for folks from the New Jersey, New York area to come down. So the parks weren't slow. They weren't slammed, but they were busy. But at that 3-day window, like you talked about at Hollywood Studios, could not buy Rise of the Resistance, Slinky Dog. It wasn't even like, oh gosh, I didn't click the button in time at 7 a.m. when it was sold out. It was before we even got to the 3-day window, we knew we weren't getting Slinky Dog. So those are the two most popular rides in Hollywood Studios. Same thing showed for our Magic Kingdom day. Tron and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train were gone. There was no virtual queue for Tiana. So if this is your one Disney trip, and those were the two parks you were going to, and you did nothing else other than what we did, which is get on exactly the first minute you could book any of those rides, you missed the 5 most popular rides.
Again, from a capitalism standpoint, totally get it. Disney is doing everything they can to monetize getting people on site in their hotels at, pretty inflated prices. And you have to pay for the privilege to not ride the most popular rides by getting Lightning Lane Pass. So the basics of this, if you're not a Disney person, you need to listen to this. Just so you can be informed about maybe you were thinking about going down after listening to old Uncle Ed and Richard talk about Disney all the time. But if you're staying in a Disney property 7 days, starting at 7 a.m., 7 days before your stay begins, you can pick Lightning Lanes. If you are staying off property at 7 a.m. 3 days before your park day starts, you can pick what is left of the Lightning Lanes. Now, what I didn't realize before this was, say you are staying at Disney for 7 days. 7 days before your resort stay starts, you can pick Lightning Lanes for that entire 7-day window.
This
so you
is
are
very key.
14 days ahead of somebody who 11 days later is going to be picking the leftovers because they're not staying on site. So that means you are literally just picking over what is left, and obviously all of the best stuff is going to be gone, and you're going to be paying in the Magic Kingdom roughly $29 per person per day to be able to do this by buying the Lightning Lane Multipass. And then you can only pick 3. To make it more complicated, the best rides are in a higher tier 1. Of your 3, you can only pick 1 of the best rides in a park, and the other 2 are things that you may or may not want to ride. In a place like Magic Kingdom, not a big deal. In a place like Hollywood Studios, where all the best rides are tier 1, and I don't really want to, skip the line on a Alien Saucers or a Frozen show, right? It's kind of a big deal. So I don't know, man. We had basically figured out how to work Genie Plus and the original Lightning Lane systems to ride everything in a very reasonable amount of time and still pay for the privilege to do it. Now we can't do that. Now, what I think about is I'm taking my parents back in a month who had such a good time with us earlier this year that they want to go for Christmas. I want to take my mom to Candlelight Processional. And then my brother and sister, who have not been to Disney with their kids ever, have asked me to, kind of be their guide in February. Yeah. I have to now tell them this week, look, guys, I'm going to do my best, but I cannot guarantee you, A, that we're even going to get to ride the best rides, or B, that it's going to be in any reasonable amount of time before your kids melt down or before my mom and dad have had enough, because they're, not spring chickens anymore. And you just kind of have to hope for the best, man. Stay on property, do 7 a.m. And I don't know. Do you think this is here? Is this the result that they wanted to see? I didn't particularly see any difference between the Lightning Lane and standby line experience that was previous. We waited 20 minutes in the Lightning Lane for Buzz Lightyear of all things, because that thing went all the way outside. And then other standby line times seem to be very similar to what they always are. So, is this here to stay, or are we going to see another revision to this?
I mean, I tend to think we will see a revision. A couple of things. First off, I did see a couple of rides. I'll use Figment as the example in Epcot. Figment's a ride. I mean, you've ridden it a couple of times with me, Ride Challenge, stuff like that. When Figment has a 10-minute line, that's, breaking news. Both times we went into Epcot during that trip, the line for Figment was out the door. And I believe it's because in a park like Epcot, where there aren't a ton of rides that you can access with, purchase Lightning Lane Multipass, you just run out of options. And if you don't purchase a pass at all, then you're looking for shorter lines. And when Frozen is, 90 to 120 minutes and your Figment says 10 in the app, you're like, well, I'll take 10 minutes. And so now Figment is now a 20-minute ride, which again, isn't the end of the world. It's more the matter of you can see some of the dispersal of people because they can't get access to the few key rides in the park. To your point of Magic Kingdom has enough rides that you can sort of spread out the standby, but the other parks, not quite as much. I think the other thing, which is where I thought you were going before we were talking about the 7-day advance thing, the reason why I think there are going to be tweaks is I don't think this is just the difference between 7-day on-site and 3 days for off-site. Because think about this, 7-day on-site is one thing, because to your point, you're able to book 14 days ahead. If you were only going to book a short weekend trip, peak days, but you were on-site, you're also now fighting against the people that booked a full week and have already been able to book your weekend. So it's not like you get a clean, slate when you book if you're staying on site. So I've already heard some complaints, poking around a little bit online for people who had shorter trips but stayed on site and couldn't get the rides they wanted. So I think they have to tweak that part if they want people to keep buying it, especially because the only other option that Disney sells are these now Ultimate Lightning Lanes, which I'm guarantee I didn't get that term right. Premier Pass. I think it was for a busy but not over the top day, maybe a crowd level 6, was $389 per person at Magic Kingdom when we were there, or $1,500 for a family of 4 on top of the probably $1,000 you spent for tickets for the day.
And you have to be staying at a deluxe resort in order to have the privilege to buy it.
For right now, yes. Yeah.
Which we were at the Grand Floridian on DVC points for 2 nights, so I was curious, if these were going to sell out, what the pricing was going to be.
If they never sold, sell out.
But do you I think that was Disney's. They're not going to put something up there unless it's going to sell out, right? I mean, I think they shot too far on price on this one. Yeah, for sure, because every single park was available every single day that we could book it, and it's just outrageously expensive on top of park tickets, on top of a deluxe resort stay. So
yeah,
I think there are signs that the softening of demand is there, except in the area of trying to skip the line of the most popular rides. So I think it's overall a pretty bad change. And I think, the last day we were there, everybody else had left. We had Tuesday in the parks, and typically I would have picked up, Lightning Lane and gone and done all the best rides and called it a day, but I didn't even bother. We just kind of strolled around a couple of the parks and had a good time.
Yeah.
Doing things we don't usually do, because it just wasn't worth the stress of all of that. And the real loser is the people who come once every 5 or 10 years with their family and they're expecting to ride the best ride and have a great time. You're just going to be standing in line, very long lines for the most popular rides, or you're just not going to get to ride because your kids are going to tap out when you go. You can go ride this really awesome new Tron thing, but you got to stay in the line for 80 minutes. And the first 40 minutes are in the blazing 110-degree sun where you got to try and share the little bitty metal umbrella shades with, your closest friends and that kind of stuff. So I think it's big L, man. Big L here.
And here's the problem, to your point of the folks who don't come that frequently. How do you know this ahead of time? Unless you're reading or following someone like us. It just like there's so much to learn. And we are experts at this. And to your point, I was pulling my hair out. The last thing I'd say on this, and we won't go into a ton of detail on this just because I don't know that we could do it justice in this format, but there is a solution, at least temporarily. It's a product called Standby Skipper that you can buy. It's definitely not authorized by Disney, and I don't know how long it'll stick around. It's been around for a while.
Can't believe it's here, honestly. I really cannot.
But it will help immensely. You're still going to spend a bunch of time on your phone. But Standby Skipper for a pretty reasonable sum can help. And we might go into a little bit more detail in the future on how to use it. But suffice to say that if you have questions, I'd say, first off, shoot us an email, text, hit us up on our DMs on Instagram or Twitter. But ask us for help. Ask us about Standby Skipper. Ask us about the new system. Do your research before you go. Because if you don't, you're going to be disappointed. You just are. And so I would rely on us for that. And then lastly, I'd say for anybody that has been, like our Delta dilemma earlier, where we asked folks what we should do about my Delta status, was one of the most commented episodes we've had in months. If you've been to Disney and tried the new systems, we want to hear from you. I want to hear how folks are reacting. Are we wrong on this? Is it better and we just missed it somehow? Did you go during a slow time and it was easy? I want to hear from folks what they think about the system, what they think about the price for the Premier Pass, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think, again, the litmus test I refer to all the time is the people here in my neighborhood who are friends, the rival dads who are not into travel points and miles, but your average, everyday American. Close friends of Emily's, their family just went. They have a 1, 3, and 5-year-old. They went with aunts and uncles and kind of a larger group. And they had asked us, should we do this? Should we go through? And my recommendation now for that, this is going to be a once every 5-year thing at most, is you guys shouldn't go. I don't think you're not going to have a good time. You're not experts. And they came back and they were like, that was not enjoyable. That was a really expensive, not enjoyable time. And I'm like, is that really the outcome that Disney wants? Because that was the expected outcome from my side, where people are like, hey, can you help me with Disney? We're thinking about doing this. And I'm like, unless you want to invest, no joke, 5 to 10 hours a week leading up to your trip to figure out everything from dining, parking, logistics, hotels, movement, transportation, not to mention skipping the ride times, you're not going to have fun. I really don't think you're going to have fun. And if you're going in the summer, you're just going to sweat to death and be miserable, and the kids are going to have meltdowns. So unless you are willing to become a full-time Disney expert, I don't think the trip is worth it anymore. And that makes absolutely no sense to me from a business. What business wants you to walk away going that wasn't fun or enjoyable? Or do they not care because they just got $20,000 off your, family of 10 coming? I just don't get it, man. I don't get it.
Yeah, and that's why I think there will be some changes. Maybe I'm not quite as negative on it in terms of sending people away, but I would say you've got to do your research if you're going to go. And I think did I enjoy the experience when we were there? No, I certainly wasn't as frustrated in the parks as I was expecting to be, but that was because we purchased Standby Skipper and because I spent a lot of time on my phone. And it was okay if I didn't ride something because I got all the rides for my kids, but it meant work. So. All right, let's tie that off there. I want to talk about Virgin before you and I run out of time, but a brief mention of our Slack community. If you want to spend a few bucks supporting us, we'd love that. You can find links to that in the show notes. We have weekly happy hours on Zoom. We're doing some meetups. You've got a bunch of channels there where you can ask travel experts like Richard and I all sorts of questions. And just as recognition of the wonderful people in the Slack community, Richard, I did want to take a moment to call out our good friend Molly, who redefined a status challenge. She had a mile run this week, not a mileage run, a mile run. She was literally 1 mile short of 75K status on Alaska Airlines. And so they would not give her the 1 mile, and she had to hop on a flight to earn 1 more mile so she could renew her status for the year.
Whew. but I appreciate the dedication for sure on
Yeah.
the mile run. And that's way better than ending the year 1 mile short. So,
And hoping that they give you the status, because we've
because they
been there.
won't.
Yeah. Yep. So, love to have you guys be a part of it. I also want to say thank you, not just to the people in the Slack community, but to all the other folks in the community. There's so many folks that donated to the Give Kids the World fundraiser that we had. We raised enough money collectively to send at least one family to the Give Kids the World village to be able to enjoy this once in a lifetime experience for a family that, needs that sort of relief. Yeah, we've done this numerous times at this point, you and I, Mr. Kerr, and I'm always touched by the comments that come from people. I'm touched by the anonymous donations. I'm touched by friends who donate over and over again when we do this. It definitely says a lot, not just about how great an organization that Give Kids the World is, but how awesome the supporters of the show are. And so for all the folks in the Slack community and all the folks in the wider community who supported us, thank you guys very much for that.
Seconded. The motion is seconded.
All in favor?
Yeah, we said amazing things about this place. I hope everybody's gone and done the research, and you can get involved in any way you can to support their mission. It's very important, and it's just an awesome place.
Yeah. We said we were going to keep donating a portion of the Slack proceeds to charity, and if you didn't follow along on social media, we did donate $1,000 to match the donations that came in from folks in our community that donated to Give Kids the World. So thanks to everybody for that. And speaking of Slack communities, that's where this feverish discussion came a little over a week ago, Mr. Kerr. We got an alert from Thrifty Traveler. I don't know if it was technically a unicorn alert, but it was a text message saying, hey, this was the day that Virgin Atlantic switched to their dynamic award pricing, which we were all sort of dreading, as we talked about during the AMA last week. And then all of a sudden it was like, wait, hold on. Are those 35,000 mile seats to London and upper class with reasonable taxes and fees? And everybody was off to the races, and the channel was going fast and furious with questions and where are you finding them and how do you book them? And it was so feverish at one point with trying to keep everybody updated on what was going on while I was trying to book my own tickets. I completely forgot that there were transfer bonuses and ended up having to transfer a small amount of points to top off my Virgin account to book, and didn't get the transfer bonus. But I think, and hopefully I get this math right, I think if you use the Chase transfer bonus, it ended up being 29,000 miles or 29,000 ultimate rewards points for an upper class ticket. And then you actually used points that were 100% transfer from one of the built transfers. So you got an even better deal than that.
Yeah. And I originally booked a ticket in March of next year for 35,000 points per person. And then I had to change the date because even though I don't plan anything far in advance, my father's 70th birthday party was, of course, that week. So I quickly did a change that day and found upper class from Atlanta to London for 29,000 Virgin points per person and $254 in taxes and fees, which is much less than the usual 800 plus that the old program charged. So, dude, that's what, 116,000 Virgin points and right at $1,000 exactly in taxes and fees for 4 upper class tickets on the new A350 product, not the old coffin class A330, which is just far superior. And that's, it's 116,000 divided by 2 because of 100% transfer bonus, right? So
yeah,
we're talking right at 58,000 built points for 4 people to fly upper class to London, like on the nonstop from my home airport. It just does not get any better than that. So far, some of the prices are here to stick around. If this is what's to come for the Virgin program, then it's just, absolutely fantastic. And I hope that they're getting the kudos around from the community where, that they should, versus the doom and gloom that everybody posted about. Now, I guess time will tell, man. There are some pricing that's back. What I find interesting is not only is the award pricing dynamic, but the fuel surcharges are now dynamic. So there are 57,500 seats out there that are $800 in taxes and fees, and there are still 30-something thousand with 250 taxes and fees. So that's really interesting to me. And just, on those days, I guess, where the yield is lower, because they have basically said that this is, revenue based, that also the fuel surcharges are way down. So what I'm saying is, if you want to fly to London and business class, like, do it now, book it. You book out. The pricing was all the way out to the end of the calendar, and kind of, I would say peak dates of spring and early summer in London were not widely available, but this will be our 3rd year shoulder season to Europe, which is just my favorite, with no crowds and no heat in a place with no AC, and could not be more excited about this booking we made.
Yeah, agree with all that, and part of why I wasn't more bummed about missing the transfer bonus from Chase to top off my account was I did transfer a chunk of built points to Virgin when you guys had the big transfer bonus. So my blended cost wasn't as low as yours, but still ridiculous. And because it was so cheap, I think this is the thing about points and miles. I said this in the Slack community, but we all have different ways that we like to travel. Some people like to travel in coach. Some people like to travel in business class. I've always looked at travel as a way to see the world for sure. But I also look at travel as ways to connect with the folks that I love. And, that was what was cool about being down at Evermore with you and Summer and Julian and Glitter Mike and everybody, this past week was like having everybody together and enjoying it. Because these flights were so cheap to London, I get to take my cousin and her daughter with us. They'll fly with us on the flight, and we'll have a vacation in London where we can all spend time together as an extended family plunking around Europe. And, she doesn't have the sort of job or means to be able to afford a European vacation just, on the fly, spur of the moment. But points and miles is what made that happen. So that trip will be more special because of what we were able to get. And, look, there aren't as many great deals out there as there used to be, for sure. It's harder to find them, but I think we have at least a show or two every year where we're like, my gosh, we got a good value this week.
Yeah. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous value.
Yes. All right. Well, you said you're getting back on a plane, which sounds odd to me, but where are you heading, man?
Headed to Dallas, the Travel More Conference by Ashley Peterson. This is the second year in a row. If you don't follow, Ashley gets around absolute hoot. Got to spend some time with her in Austin at the Built meetup, and really get to know her for the first time since her first inaugural conference last year. But headed there very quick one night in Dallas, and then have to get back because they moved my daughter's last soccer game from 2 Saturdays to now until this Saturday, as of yesterday. And I was like,
as one does.
Thank you so much for dude, I'm telling you, man, these sports leagues cannot figure out their schedule, and it drives me just like there's a finite number of fields, a finite number of teams. The calendar every year is still the same as far as I know.
365 days every year.
And they cannot figure this out. And I just don't understand, to the point where I'm either going to, kids are going to have to do something else, or I'm going to have to be on the board and figure out and fix this. Like, why we can't.
Don't do that.
Some of us cannot plan our lives 3 days in advance, but, we pay for the privilege to do it via change, difference of fares. And now waking up at 5 a.m. in Dallas to get on the flight at DFW because of the hour lost to get home in time to drive home to the soccer game. So thank you very much, Southern Soccer Academy here in Newton, Georgia, for just not ever being able to figure out anything a week in advance. But that's this week's soapbox, and now I'm done, but I don't get it.
As you hop off the soapbox, do you have enough time to give us the Frontier Tales, or do we need to save that for next week?
It's time for Frontier Tales with Uncle Ed and Richard. Look, we booked 2 one-ways to Orlando and back because, again, $52 per person all in, and I only booked this a couple weeks in advance because of the status match to now Frontier Diamond and Discount Den membership. I told the story last week about Mrs. Mary not feeling so good and having to use 40-something thousand Chase points to get them on a later Southwest flight. But Thomas and I flew Frontier down. We departed the gate 4 minutes early, and we arrived, even after a bit of a long taxi in Atlanta, 15 minutes early to the gate. And we waited no time for a gate in Orlando. So a 15-minute early arrival in Frontier in row 3 of the extra legroom seats. I mean, my gosh, man.
You're already winning.
Winning big time. Just such a great, you almost when you have an experience like that in the air for $50 a person, you get the high. And because I'm Diamond, I get, as long as you cancel within 24 hours or before 24 hours of your departure time, you get a refund to the original form of payment included in the work. So I got a refund for Emily and Mary's ticket, and I got $100 back. And because I had booked as 2 one-ways and not a round trip, that protected their return flight. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, book one way, not round trip. And the vast majority of your travel bookings. So their return trip was maintained, which is exactly the reason we book as one-ways. And then yesterday, flying back, man, was tracking the flight. I still had 3 legs to go before it got to Orlando for a 2 p.m. departure, so a little nervous. But Hunter, the Bobcat, the Frontier A320 Neo, did its job well. Flew somewhere to Atlanta to Houston, then Houston to Orlando, arrived to the gate only 3 minutes late. They very quickly turned the plane. We seamlessly boarded, and off we went for a 10-minute arrival into Atlanta with no gate wait. So, I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. A couple of things that I have noticed in the last Frontier flights that are new. One is not new. We've talked about it, but now the first 2 rows have the middle seat blocked. And even as a Diamond member in advance, you have to pay for these. So really only row 3 now is the only row with extra legroom that Diamonds can book everybody on their PNR for free, which that kind of stinks because you lose 2/3 of the inventory. And those row 3 is always taken up now. So you got to book kind of early in advance if you're going to get those for free. However, what I learned yesterday, very interesting, as one usually does before a flight, you go in the app and check the seat map and see the load and see what's going on. Within 24 hours of departure, a Diamond member can pick a seat in row 1 or row 2 for free.
All right.
But only for you, not for everybody on your PNR. Now, where this actually became helpful traveling as a family of 4 is row 3, D, E, and F were empty.
Right.
So Emily, Thomas, and Mary were there. And then I just put myself right there in 2F and had the middle seat empty next to me for the flight back for free. So and they were charging $60 a seat for the hour flight to get the middle seat block next to you. So another $60 in value added. And then they are really, really strict now with closing the first 2 overhead bins to save it for row 1 because you can't have anything at your feet. So even if you're in your row 2, you got to put your carry-on bag back about row 4 where the next overhead bin starts. That's a bit of a pain. And both flights, I saw a little bit of fussing from people sitting in row 2 and row 3 wanting to put their bags above them. And the flight attendants vehemently saying, no, you have to put them in the one back in row 4. So if you're in row 2 or row 3, your bags are going to be behind you. So it's still a little bit of pressure to board early. I don't see any other airline do that. Usually for row 1, they'll find somewhere for you. So I continue to find that a little bit, again, just kind of annoying, but I guess if you're in row 1, then great. But otherwise, man, just like the best deal. I only have another 6 weeks of Diamond status unless they do the status match again next year. A lot of shade thrown at Frontier. I've certainly shared the stories of being delayed quite significantly and how rough that can be. But when it goes like it did this week on two flights in a row, man, and now with the $60 seat for free, and I would imagine on a longer flight, much more expensive to have the middle seat blocked to you. Like if they had Wi-Fi, man, then I would seriously take a look at, just like I have with Spirit in the past of hopping on there. So best deal in domestic travel, Frontier Diamond status. And it was just absolutely wonderful flights there and back.
No plans for the Wi-Fi, which is a big tough one for me. But otherwise, the mildest and most positive of Frontier Tales I think we've had.
When everything goes right, it is just a brilliant experience.
It is. All right. Well, other than Texas, are you home next week?
I don't know. Probably not. One night in Texas where I'm sure I will get 4 hours of sleep. Back for a soccer game, collapse Sunday, and then we might be headed to New York City by the time people are listening to this to get a trip in for the holidays because of a big project we are working on in the day job that I'm very excited about. So we will see. All right.
Well, can't wait to hear about that. I think that by the next time we put a microphone in front of each other, it'll be London, Prague, and then Lisbon. For me, and then back home. So.
Oh wait, no, I have to go to Tampa next week. It's the annual Burn Steak Meetup. What am I talking about?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, well, you guys keep scheduling this while I'm in Lisbon. I appreciate that.
Yeah, one night in Tampa for the amazing Burn Steakhouse annual trip. Very excited about that. Maybe some New York before or after that. We'll see. And then shout out to the running crew who woke up at 3 a.m. on Saturday for our race. So we ran 6.2 miles at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. That was my second 10K. 6.2 miles in this frame was a lot, but I did very well for myself. I'm not a runner, as you would say, but very close to the PR for the 10K, so averaging 10:48 minutes. And then Summer did awesome, Sparkle Mike, Marty, Sway, and then Mrs. Kerr was out there after only 3 hours of sleep, running 6.2 miles. And she is a runner, ladies and gentlemen, and this was she's going to listen to this and she's going to kill me, but first of all, super impressed that she got up.
But okay.
No, we from time to time. Super impressed that she woke up at 3 a.m. after only 3 hours of sleep, getting in very late on that Southwest flight, running 6.2 miles. Thought she was going to beat me, sadly 45 seconds behind me. But I'm pretty sure on an even playing field of sleep, she would have crushed me. So I look forward to the next 5 a.m. Disney race and Mrs. Kerr trying to take me out. But now that I know it's that close, I'm not going to let it happen. And I think Summer and I are running in the 10-miler every time we say that's our limit. 3-1, 5K was our limit, 10K was our limit. Now a 10-miler in April, and we'll see how that goes. But I think I'm going to pull the trigger on that today.
No, Yeah, have fun with that. The best you can hope for from me is that I'll be around sometime that morning to drink champagne and donuts with you, but probably not before 7 or 8. But I do think your wife would have smoked you if she didn't have 3 hours of sleep. She rallied hard and worked hard to get Mary down and keep that trip intact. So lots of good stuff there. Can't wait to hear how the Burns adventure is. 2nd year in a row missing out, and can't wait to hear about all this built stuff that you keep dropping breadcrumbs on. But a little bit more travel for you and I to get through the rest of the year and start over with the counter at 0 in 2025. Until we upload again, we've got miles to go.